Now we're going to open up a cross-section window, and we can do this a couple of ways, the first of which is through the vertical grading editor. Before we start, we're just going to restore down the size of the vertical grading editor so it's not full screen anymore. We're going to click on the following button, and we're simply going to move the vertical grading editor just to one side, preferably the left-hand side. If you've got multiple screens, you can just park it onto an alternative screen if you wish. Within the vertical grading editor, if you right-click anywhere within that graphical window, you'll see that we get, within the background of the drawing environment, another form pop up, and this is a cross-section window. If you can't see it initially, just move your vertical grading editor to the left or right, or even just down, and you should see that you've got another window appearing. This is a cross-section window, which is a live representation of the cross-section of, in this case, Road 1. You'll know in the vertical grading editor that you've got one open because there is an orange line representing where that particular cross-section is open. In the drawing environment, and this is where we're just going to move it to one side and just pan through, you should be able to see a marker. As I move my mouse left and right across the cross-section window, you'll see that that marker is moving to indicate where my mouse is positioned. I'm going to move the form over to one side. If you wanted to open an entirely different cross-section, you can simply right-click again, and as we right-click within the vertical grading editor, you can see that we're getting a replacement cross-section being displayed. If you require more than one cross-section window to be displayed at any one time, you can hold down the Shift key and then right-click. And as we do that, you'll see that we get multiple cross-section windows being displayed, all of which are indicated in the vertical grading editor with an orange line. Now we're going to close those additional ones down, leaving the original, so we're just going to go up to the close buttons on each of those to shut those down. Now, what we might do is just simply reduce the size of the vertical grading editor here. Again, if you're running multiple screens, then that's absolutely fine. The cross-section is currently being displayed at chainage 200. If you want to revise the position of the cross-section window, then you can do that by just simply going to the pull down and picking an alternative chainage if you wish. You can also use the left and right arrow buttons to cycle through your particular cross-sections. Another way that you can do this is to simply move your mouse anywhere within this ribbon and scroll your mouse wheel forward and back, and as you do that, you'll actually begin moving forward and back along your cross sections. If you want to navigate within the actual cross-section window itself, it's very similar to what we did with the vertical grading editor. We can hold down the mouse wheel to pan, and as you see, as I drag my mouse left and right, that begins to pan. We can scroll in and out, and that will zoom in and out of our cross-section. And then if we double tap the mouse wheel, you can see there that we are zooming to or fitting the extent of the cross-section view. As I move my mouse around the cross-section window, down the bottom of the form, we're being provided with an offset and an elevation of our mouse position. Also, the code that we are closest to, which will be very important when we come to look at something called design variations. We're going to pop up to the Display tab, and on the Display tab, we're going to click on the Viewer Settings button. In here we can choose to show a number of different options. For example, at the moment we are showing depth, signified by C and F, cut and fill. What we're going to do is uncheck that, and we're going to ask to show codes. This is going to be important later on when we come to do our cross-section editing, to enable us to see the codes which are represented from our template within the cross-section window. Underneath we can also control some of the defaults for the cross-sections. Now, the color, which is being used for the background, can be changed, and the vertical exaggeration. You may find that the default vertical exaggeration for your cross-section window every time it opens is maybe too severe or too high, in which case a number of around 2 or 5 is very reasonable. The frame size of this cross-section that opens is also editable, meaning that you can have it a particular frame size every time you open it up. Let's click OK. You can see that the codes are now being shown at the top of the cross-section window. What we'll do is now just pop back to the Home tab. To see how these cross-section windows operate, you can move the vertical design and actually see the cross-section window respond live. So what I'm going to do is manually move the IP at roughly chainage 80, just up and down. using the following tool. Go to left click near the IP, move my mouse up, and as I do that, the cross-section is changing into a fill scenario, and the batters are automatically adjusting to reflect that change. Going to left click to reposition that particular cross-section. Now we're going to have a quick look at what happens when we want to open up a cross-section when we don't have the vertical grading editor available. Go ahead and close the cross-section window and the vertical grading editor. So there may be a scenario where you'd like to open up a cross-section along your string and you don't have the vertical grading editor open. Now you can simply open up the vertical grading editor and generate a cross-section that way. However, there is a quicker method. On the vertical grading editor pull down, you'll see that there is a section window button. Go ahead and click on that now. Now it's important that you keep an eye on the command line at this point. It's asking you to select alignment. We actually need 2 clicks at this point. The first one is to left click close to the alignment that you want to use. Well, in this case it's going to be road 1. So I'm going to left click close to the alignment. It then says select required chainage to display. So again, this wants another click roughly where you would like to open up a cross-section window. So if you want to, you can zoom in at this point. I'm going to left click close to chainage 80, not exactly on it, but just close. The software has opened up a cross-section window, in this case at chainage 70. So the nice thing is I can just simply move the form down and cycle across to chainage 80 if that's the one I'd like to see. Going to close down the cross-section window. If at any point I've got more than one cross-section window open and I'd like to close them all, I can click on the pull down and there is a close windows button, and that will close all open cross-section windows that are currently being displayed within the drawing environment.